you need to do whenever you sit down to thread a machine is you need to make sure that it's set for what kind of stitch you want to do. And today we want to do a straight stitch. So first off, we want to make sure that it is on straight. And this knob controls the stitch width. So if you wanted to do a zigzag, you would use this knob. So if someone else has used the machine and they were zigzagging, then they might have it set to 4. So you would want, but you want a straight stitch, so you want it set to 0. This knob right here needs to be up and down all the time, straight up and down for our class, because we want the needle position to be right in the middle. And I'm going to go ahead and turn on the machine so that you can see better. But if you will watch the needle as I move this knob, you'll see what I mean. This controls the position of the needle. So we want the needle to be in the center position, so we always want that to be straight up and down. This next knob, we will never use this for our class because this is an automatic buttonhole maker. And if you turn this knob, it affects the whole machine. So when I turn it, it starts moving other things. And so if you ever, if your machine is not performing correctly, if you look at this and it's on 2 or 3 or any other number besides 0, then you need to turn this knob to the right until it gets back to 0, because it controls, it kind of takes over the whole machine. So this should never be used. It should always be on 0. This next knob is the stitch length control, and it controls how long or short the stitches are, and you move it by turning it right or left. And the standard stitch length is 2.5, so it needs to be on 2.5. This last knob at the bottom, this outer knob controls the special stitches, and we want it to be on the green side because that would be straight. And then this inner knob controls this, whether the feed dogs, that's these little plates with teeth, are up or down. So if it's to the right, they're up, and if it's to the left, it drops them down, and that means that the fabric won't go anywhere. So you want them to the right because you want the feed dogs to feed your fabric through the sewing machine. So most of the time you will not be using this knob. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is to wind the bobbin. In the video we watched about the sewing machine, it talked about there being an upper thread and a lower thread. So we need to wind some of this thread onto this bobbin. So the way we do it is we put this on the spool pin, and then we drag it around this guide right here. And on the top of this guide, you'll see some arrows, and the arrows are going clockwise, and that's the way the thread needs to go. So we just need to drag it in front and around, and then we're going to put the thread up through the middle of this bobbin from the inside to the outside, and then we'll put it on the bobbin winder and push the bobbin winder to the right to activate it. Then when we're winding the bobbin, we do not want the needle to be going up and down. The hand wheel controls the up and down action of the needle. So what we do is we loosen the hand wheel. We hold onto the hand wheel and we turn the hand wheel release toward us, and that loosens it, and it causes the needle not to go up and down while you're winding the bobbin. So the next thing you're going to do is hold onto the tail of the thread and push the foot pedal. And on this you can go fast if you want to. While you're holding this thread, it eventually twists off, and I'm not going to wind the bobbin all the way right now. I'll just wind it some. So when you're finished winding the bobbin, you will push that back over, tighten the handle back up, cut this thread, take this off, and then this has to go, the bobbin has to go in the bobbin case in order for it to work in the machine. So the bobbin case, to put the bobbin in here, we need to have this little notch on top, and we need the thread to be going over the top and to the right. So we slide it in there, and then we hold it in with our thumb, because if you don't, it will fall out. And then lift the thread up and it will fall right into that notch. And then you kind of drag it and kind of tug on it until it goes under the plate and through that opening. And after that, you kind of lean it toward the back, because if you lean it forward, the bobbin will fall out. But you pull on that thread, and if the bobbin winds easily to the right, then you've done it correctly. If it goes to the left, then you've got it in backwards. Okay, so now we're going to turn it around, because we want it facing the other way, and we want this little arm to be pointing up. So we're going to put it in the machine. Make sure when you put it in, you hear it click. If it doesn't click, then you probably didn't do it correctly. Then pull on the thread. If it pulls easily and smoothly, and the bobbin doesn't fall out or wiggle around, then you know it's in there right. Okay, now to thread the upper thread. You'll drag this thread around this thread guide, and when you do, make sure that it goes in the little slot up there. Then drag it down this channel, straight down, from right to left, and then up around this. This is called the take-up lever. It needs to be right there, because if it's up or down, then it won't catch. The thread won't catch on it when you drag it around. Okay, and then you're going to drag it around this thread guide. Now you should have a capital N. If you have a capital N, then you have threaded it correctly. If you don't, then you probably did something wrong. So now you're going to thread this through the eye of the needle, and this is much easier than when we were using embroidery floss, threading it through the needle, because we just have one strand of thread and it goes through pretty easily. You hold on to that thread with your left hand, and with your right hand you turn the handle toward you until the needle goes in the machine and comes back up. When it comes back up, then you pull on that top thread, and it brings up the bottom thread. So you want to smooth that out and close the door. Then bring both threads together over around to the right, and then push down on the top thread so it can go through that little slot, and then take both threads to the back. They should be underneath the presser foot. This is the presser foot, and above the feed dogs. See the little plate with teeth in it? Those are the feed dogs, and the way that you can remember that is just by remembering dogs have teeth. Okay, so the next thing we do, if we wanted to sew these two pieces of fabric together, we would put them right sides, or the good sides, together, face to face, and we would line up the edges. And since it's such a short piece of fabric, we're not going to use straight pins to hold them together. But if it were a longer piece of fabric, we would put straight pins in, going in at a right angle. Okay, so we're going to put the fabric under the presser foot. We're going to make it a 5/8 inch seam allowance. The seam allowance is the amount of space between the edge of the fabric and the seam itself. So in order to do that, we're going to use the third line over from the presser foot. Count 1, 2, 3. So we put it under there, and then we lower the presser foot, and the way we do it is we either reach in through here or around this way. Never reach over the top of the machine, or you'll disrupt your threading. Alright, now we're going to take a few stitches forward with the foot pedal. The foot pedal controls the machine. Take a couple stitches forward, and then you back stitch. And the way you back stitch is you lift the stitch length control. The back stitch is to machine stitching what the C-knot is to hand stitching. It locks in the stitches. So we're going to back stitch to the top of the seam, then we're going to let go of that and stitch, continue stitching. All the while we're keeping the fabric on that third line in order to make a straight stitch all the way down the length of the fabric. Once we get to the bottom, we're going to back stitch a couple stitches again. When you back stitch, you only need to stitch a couple stitches to lock in the stitches, and then let go. And finished, you want to make sure that your needle is out of the fabric. If it is in, like this, you want to make sure that you turn the hand wheel until it comes up out of the fabric before you try to remove the fabric from the machine. You lift the presser foot, pull the fabric away, and on most machines there is a thread cutter at the back left side. So you just drag your thread over that to cut off the extra thread. And then we have these bags so that you can put your extra thread in there so it keeps your area neat. Now, you should be able to see that at each end the thread looks a little darker. That's where I backstitched. You can see that the stitching is straight all across because I kept it along that line the whole time. Now, if you noticed, when I was stitching, my fingers weren't anywhere close to the needle. If you keep your fingers in this position, your fingers will not be close enough to the needle for the needle to run over your fingers. Also, remember the 3 things that I tell you. Take your time, don't get in a hurry, stay focused, don't get distracted, and follow the directions. If you do those 3 things, then you will not have an accident. Okay? All right, thank you.